Hello, everyone. I just put up a video responding to Terry, and it prompted another question, and it's a fun exchange. I'm having this with Terry on the Discord server. I'll post a link to that below. The question was, there's actually a couple things he said that were kind of fun. Before I start on that, my name is Dan Paulson, and welcome to the channel. I am looking for the secrets of antiquity. There's one sequence, framing all myths and religion from antiquity. And this is a effort to reveal. And the video I just put up was discussing what the 7 days of creation were, and and his response was that was very helpful. What's the difference between a monomyth and a template? My understanding is the monomyth is the story about the anchor that can't sail, and the template is the carrying a burden or can't move on with this anchor. Okay, yeah, I can see that I've got some things I've got to clear up. I've got some things that I've said kind of goofy here. Okay, so Terry, I edited this in afterwards. I think this is probably the simplest thing that what you might be looking for. The template is the sequence of life cycle. The way that it is hidden by flipping it outward and putting it into stories is by the use of analogs. So analogs are being used to hide the story on the template. In its simplest form, that's it. Let's get into the video. How to proceed. There's a number of things going on that are all carrying the lessons. There's short teaching verses that are carrying it. It's not a monomyth. You can get into other types of material which become the monomyth, or what's called the monomyth, something that Joseph Campbell identified, but let's talk about that. My name is Dan Paulson, everyone. Welcome to the channel. That's all this channel does here, work on finding what this core template is, which is all around the world. Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, Taoists, everybody, we have one bottom line reality. Terry's from Australia. And another comment was, I'm seeing an analogy to the Australian Aborigines storytelling because you describe how they lived 2,500 years ago, and it fits the Australian Aborigines. Imagine if they wrote a Bible with all their analogies. If the Bible was written about the Aborigines, then it would be similar to their dream time. The Bible could be dream time, and in the stories you discover the life lessons. And you know what? I don't know, but I bet you you're right, and I bet you when you learn this stuff, you'll be the person to help figure all that stuff out. It's such a big global thing. I'm just like picking into it a little bit right here. Okay, I want to talk about what the monomyth is and all the things are, because there's something deeper going on. There's actually one core reality that everything is based upon, and that is the human life cycle, how we come about, how life emerges, how we heal. That is really what it's based in. Now, if you went to the Tao Te Ching, you're going to learn that in here, except it won't be in the format of a adventure story. In a hero's journey, there's one very distinguishing thing about the hero's journey. It goes on this inner path, except that it is using a character, with you as the character, going through some sort of a story thing that brings you along the path. If you take away the hero's journey and say, let's just strip it down to the bare basics, you come back to something like this. You come back to something like, say, maybe the Sermon on the Plain or the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are those who are empty in spirit. Blessed are those who are devoid of all those connections. Those things are starting to be there. The teachings are there. They're the same thing. But they're held in here's what you must do. Instead of, so-and-so adventured off into the land and struggled to leave the past behind. It's still you. And in something like this, it's going to just maybe say something like, it's going to be hard to leave your past behind. So what we're going to see, if you explored this, there's a lot of Christians I've run into that really, boy, they don't like this idea. I like it. So, you know, what you got is you're telling people that the Bible is framed on monomyths like everything else. Boy, did people not like that. They don't care that everything else is monomyths, but no, we're special. We got something going on that nobody else has. The carrier shell they do is they can't see what's actually there. So when I do things like that, I've had recently, a couple days ago, I had a conversation with somebody that actually got kind of heated on their part. It was a woman, actually. They got really angry at me, trying to post all these things about how so-and-so, minister such and such, was able to determine that Joseph Campbell didn't know what he was talking about, and these things don't align and they don't match up, and it's trying to discount the work. What Joseph Campbell did was spotted in all of these monomyth stories, he saw that, there's a choosing of somebody. There's an isolation. There's something going on. So that's what he did. And this is what he saw and what he wrote as what he thought between looking at, from around the world, thousands of myths. I haven't even looked at as much as he looks at. I look into them deeper. He looked at a broader scope than I did. I'm looking at a broader scope than any theist is doing, but I'm looking in more detail. Joseph Campbell kind of cracked it open, seeing what was there. This is what he saw, and this is what he identified as the steps. Now, this is just one I pulled off of the internet here. It's not from his book, but somebody else's graph. We've got a call to adventure. This is a circle that starts at the very top, and it goes counterclockwise. We have a separation section up there, the first upper left quarter. Then the initiation is the lower half, and the return is the upper right corner. Let's look at it then. First step is a call to adventure. That's when whoever the hero is called. Then there's typically a refusal of the call. They don't want to go. They decide to finally. Then they get supernatural aid. Then they cross a threshold. Then they're in the belly of the whale. And he's coming up with very nebulous verbiage still. Road of trials. Meeting with the goddess. What are these things? Temptation. Atonement with the Father. Apostasis. I think it's supposed to be apotheosis. The ultimate boon. Refusal of the return. Magic flight. Rescue from without. Crossing the return threshold. Master of two worlds. And freedom to live. Okay. All right, we look at that, and at once we can see that these are not mentally interactive steps. They're not correct. It's going to be difficult for people to look at that and say, that's not the Bible, that's not Christianity. All righty. I'm going to say right up front, unless you're interested in myth, and I'm not really a study of myth. I look at the template. I realize that all of the creatures and all of the things are created to be something that fits on that template. So that's to the extent that I study myth. I have Joseph Campbell's book. I've read it. I've got his stuff from Phil Moyer. Look at this. Here's something in the back. Read this one. In the 3 decades since I discovered the hero with 1,000 faces, it has continued to fascinate and inspire me. Joseph Campbell peers through centuries and shows us that we are all connected by a basic need to hear stories and understand ourselves. As a book, it is wonderful to read. As illumination into the human condition, it is a revelation. George Lucas. Star Wars. Luke called. You must go. Gets the video. Uncle Owen. No, you can't. You got to stay here. Refusal of the call. Something happens. He goes. Supernatural aid. What happens next? He's going to go get training from Yoda. He's following that template. The template has more to it. Joseph Campbell. Here's where I'm going to discuss where he stopped. I believe he probably knew more. There's other works out here, and Jung's work on this as being, this is known as something in the background. There's certain conditions that happen. There's certain repeated things. That's what we're all looking at here. Joseph Campbell didn't have to take the path. He got to see it academically. He didn't have to turn inward and heal himself. I had to. So I used the template in a different way, which allowed me to see things, I think, that are different. To me, the most important thing that is conspicuously absent from his work is the element of a cyclical pain. The cyclical pain is the reason we take the journey to begin with. The cyclical pain is an incredibly important element, and throughout the material, it is going to emerge again and again and again as something to observe and to interact with. That cyclical pain teaches us, through cause and effect, what our issues are. He didn't see that at all. In all of these, before Moses crosses the Red Sea, the plagues are there. There's this element of repeated cycles of pain. The harpies eating Phineas's food, the repeated cycles of pain. A boulder being rolled up a hill that, you're just repeating it over and over again. All of the stories that are in here of holding, you're going to find some kind of an element in there that is a repeating cycle of hurt, pain, something. Those are the conceptual elements that make people say, see, they're not the same story. Though you can see at once that they layer deeper. Once you start taking the mental hierarchy and assigning them analogous parts, like the conscious is the male and the subconscious is the female, now you can take that idea with people not knowing anything more than this is about man and woman. When you turn it inward and you put it in the hierarchy, you realize those are holding something specific, and that the pain in childbirth that continues to come out is the cycle of pain. So it's being nested at a deeper level that makes it harder and harder to see. But once we mentally process them through, you go, okay, you have to play it out in the psyche. You have to understand that it fits into something in your life. And then when you do that, you go, what is something happening over and over again that I can't resolve and that hurts me? Sounds like the stuff I'm dragging with me. So that's where they start hooking up together. That it's the conceptual reading part where it finally unfolds. But it's also probably engaging with the material that makes it more real. You can view it academically. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. You know what I realize now? The Tao that is lived is the eternal Tao. That's the opposite of the Tao that can be told is not the eternal. The one that is lived is. This is in our grasp. Okay. Let me back up. Joseph Campbell's work and that monomyth idea is incomplete, and it's downstream, and it's cryptic. There is something that we've talked about, first of all, that we have to look at. We can look at it our own self. Just stop and look at your life. Base this entire teaching on this idea right here. Look at your life. You know that you have certain qualities and characteristics that you were born with and that you don't have any control over. You know that came at birth. You know there's a couple things they're putting in there that you may not know, but here's what I'll put in, that everything that happens is done by cause and effect. Nothing happens without something else happening first. That everything that we see manifest in the physical world is the final result of something else. And that everything continually moves in cycles. It moves over and over again. That's the way the universe works at an energy level. Things continue to become emergent from other things, and it continually moves in cycles. And we are in that. We're emergent. We're in that ocean. We're not going to do anything different. We live in cycles, and it's cause and effect. But we start doing it at a mental level, and it creates a physical experience for us. So what happens at first, we have the capacity to, we develop enough as infants until we are self-aware. Once we're self-aware, we can begin judging our life experiences. And most people in the world don't always have the best of life experiences. Even if your life is good, you may have had bad things. There's many people, we're on this path because we've had very bad life experiences. We hurt and we're tired of it. And we want to make changes. And we have the courage to look inward, to look at what the real problem is, instead of sitting there hurting, continuing to blame the life that's happening out there is the issue. We're realizing we fit here and we want to extract ourselves from it. And that's going to be hard. That is what is happening. We're living in an energy-based cosmos. We're beginning to name things. That's first sin. Then we're going to have pain. We're going to be attached to the earth. We're going to be living our lives unaware of the fact that we are voraciously as human creatures grabbing up everything we can in life. But where are you and what is your life experience? What egg and sperm were you? Where did you emerge from? Nobody has any choice over that. And from that point, you have your life experiences, and we mentally hold those as memories, and we live through those. We live through our life experiences. And if our life hurts, it's because our life experiences hurt. But our life experiences we had no control over. What we're learning now is that what is happening and why life is continuing to hurt the way it is because the way we are still holding that anger, that shame. I hate you. You did this to me. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I can never face up to that. All of these things that we have us wrapped up in our head, we're living through those experiences, and those are the things that are repeating over and over again. We are wanting to go heal that. So we know we must change the perception. The demon is, honestly, there's a memory and the way you hold that memory. I'm ashamed. I hate. Whatever it is. In your mind, it affects you. It's your life. It's very individual this way. Even though it works exactly the same for everybody, your pain is based on what you're holding. So you must resolve your own issues. And you know that by your own emotional connection with the memories that you hold it with. What we need to do in defeating that is to change the perception of it. There's this forgiveness. There's this way that we are attached to it, that we must find a way to detach from it so that we stop having the emotional connection with it, which then causes it to stop. Well, ultimately, even though it stays as a memory, it ceases to be a part of your life. There's a part in the story, many parts of the story, Sheol. There's something that is trapped away and it's rendered, it loses its power. That's it. Anytime you find those, the harpies and Greeks, that Zeus doesn't allow them to be killed. They can be caged or rendered ineffective. Those are the things that keep bugging you. and you finally deal with them, but you can't kill them. You can only make them, rendered ineffective. Here's some examples to see the concepts. This is coming from the Enuma Elish. This is on tablet 4. And the destruction of Tiamat has happened. Marduk is taking over and running things. Here, this comes up. I'll just read this part right here. Since they were at once encircled and not allowed to escape. So he had them bound and destroyed all of their weaponry, and they were trapped within a net, and there they remained. Then they shrank back, overcome as they were by despair. But they endured this affliction of being held incarcerated. Those were the bad things. They were put away. They weren't killed. They were rendered. They were trapped away. Their weapons were gone. They can no longer hurt. We're going to see it in Enoch. It's conceptually. Downstream sounds different. And the Lord said to Michael, "Go bind Semjaza and his team who have associated with women and have defiled themselves in all their uncleanliness. When their sons have slain one another," these are talking about, Semjaza is our earlier self. Go bind the earlier self. When their sons have slain one another, and they have seen the destruction of their beloved ones, bind them fast for 70 generations under the hills of the earth, until the day of the consummation of their judgment, and until the eternal judgment is accomplished. So in both cases, you're seeing the bad getting rendered unusable. In all those cases, that's the conceptual part where the memories are being, it's holding the idea that you're having to let go of the way you're attached to those memories. They will know they're hurting you, and at some point in time, they're no longer hurting you, even though they're still there. And let's see, that'll change your environment. Depending on how much you have to change, you might just have a little bit of stuff to deal with. But one issue, you get that resolved, you're fine. You might come from a very bad place and have a lot of issues. In that case, I guarantee it, you're not going to stay where you are. You're not going to continue to fit with the people that you hang out with. Those are parts of the path. And then it's going to be difficult to come back. That's the difficulty in the return threshold, crossing the return threshold. Now you got something resolved. You come back and go, oh my gosh, now I got more issues. I don't belong here. And for the record, I've accidentally took this trip in life. I started out from an abusive home and a runaway at 15. I remember eating out of garbage cans. I'm retired today. Everything is fine. I've gone on this trip in bits and pieces. But eventually, I figured out what it was, and that it's here for anybody that wants it. We can all find it. We just get so busy, we kind of lost it. So you have to resolve other things as well, and eventually life is fine. And you have the master of both worlds, which is what? That means that because you've resolved the inside issues, now your outside life is okay. We need to make this more interactive and put all the pieces into it. And there's something he did not know when he created the monomyth. What he did, what I just described right there, he picked it up right where the point is we decide, I've had enough. All right, what I've got here are 2 of my own templates. What I've done is I've reworked everything that I find. This first one right here is actually, it kind of corresponds to Genesis, the first 7 days, the 7 days of creation. I've got them here. 1, we're born from universal energy. We exist within the framework of natural laws. Everything within the cosmos is in cycles. We experience all due to cause and effect. We have fixed qualities at birth. It's in our DNA. We grow till we're self-aware. We begin to develop our identity through our experiences and basic skills. And then at 7 here, day 7, we begin mental awareness of our experiential life right here. We are happy and not yet attached to any real-world experience. This is our place of personal bliss. We want to return to this state. Then what goes on is judged unchecked. Life experiences begin to be hidden deeply, and we begin to lose our inner joy. Our early self emerges, highly mentally attached to physical experiences. Cyclical pain emerges. We become divided, and early self takes charge. We get attached to the physical world completely. Time goes by, and left unchecked, Whatever we harbor gets bigger and bigger within us. Life has become out of sorts. We're frazzled by our development and not knowing how to fit in with our world. We're getting ready to emerge from our physical beginnings. This is a point where our flood is ready. We're frazzled by our development and not knowing how to fit in with our world. We are ready to emerge from what we want. We're ready to turn in. Okay, this entire piece, none of this was identified by Joseph Campbell. Not a bit of it. We go down here into where what would be called the monomyth begins. You can see I've got it. I've changed the way that he's got it. Let's just go through it. Number 1, there's a selected person. Number 2, there's cause and effect. 3, there's going to be cycles of pain. Typically, you're going to want to put those in if it's a standalone story. If you went to Enoch and you wanted to read that, and these are word of mouth. They stand alone. You need to have the instructions inside of there. So you have to put cause and effect and cycles of pain in somehow without having a creation story happen again. But we presume Enoch does not arrive at the same time Genesis does, so you have to have the instructions. It's going word of mouth. We need the awareness of what to do in the mind first. We're going to have a struggle to leave the past behind. That need awareness of what to do, that's the supernatural aid. Won't want to, that's our refusal to go. We're going to struggle to leave the past behind. We turn inward to the mind. That's the crossing of the threshold. Then we're going to be using our conscious and higher self to interact with memories and emotions to begin a process of healing. We're going to face and work with the fears till they're no longer fears. In plain language, we must change the way we feel about our memories. And we're going to make sure to share only with others that are of the same understanding. Life changes may occur which are really big. We cease to fit in with our past and now need a new place to be. And then how long before further growth sends us on another inner trek with these same results? You may have to move again. I don't fit there anymore either. We emerge back into life, no longer the slave of our surroundings and what we're bringing with us, but knowing we are observing the manifested effect of a deeper cause. Fighting the effect makes it bigger, so we now know to back away. If we are truly healed and out of any bad situations or not packing anymore, the cyclical pain will not emerge again. If we have mastered a part of yourself, or you have mastered a part of yourself and learned what to do to master it all if you choose to. Did I write that? But I got to redo this. It's been a while. But it will be a hard trip for personal and communal reasons. Okay. That's the basic human life cycle today in modern language. When you pick up something like the Tao Te Ching or the Dhammapada, it's going to start teaching us that, but not in a monomyth format, and it's not going to teach it in plain language like I just did. It's going to say things like the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be not named is not the eternal name. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao, but you know what? The Tao is this process, this path, the teaching itself. It's not the Buddhism, it's not the Christianity, it's not the Judaism, it's the Tao, the way. The way that can be told is not the eternal way, so it sounds like it's very mystical, but I will tell you what. The way that is taken is the eternal way. You can tell about it. It doesn't say you can't be told it. It just says that it's not eternal when it's told. It is eternal when it's taken. That means it's mental. We work it through and we begin to go, The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Naming is what we begin to classify things that we start out without having things named. The unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. This would correlate to where we are naming things, the animals and all that stuff in Genesis, but not in that kind of a format. This is just telling it it's up to you. It's you naming it. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Desire is what you're hanging on to. Free from that, you live free in life. Caught in desire, hanging on to things, you see only the manifestations. There's the cyclical stuff coming around. So the teaching is here, but it's not in a monomyth format. This is very much it's kind of like mine, except we're not going to make it plain language. We're going to take each one of those and kind of twist it up into a verse because it's a different time and a different place. And you want the person to go think about it. You want them to go, You want them wiring their brain. There's no media. There's nothing like that going on. It takes time. It's a good way to do it. Don't tell it plain language. Tell it cryptically. And then tell it cryptically in a way that these are very directly that way, that much. When it comes to something like this, it's doing something different. It's got the same teaching in it, but it's not held in that very much direct, here's where you come from, here's how it hangs on. It goes into a story format. This is where the first, or I think prior to this, this is where the first, for me, reading it, I can see, despite the fragmentary nature of it, I can very well see the monomyth in here. Or the human life cycle. It's not just the monomyth. The monomyth is only when the person is called, the Joseph Campbell one. What we're really looking at is a human life sequence, and we want to bring in more than Joseph Campbell did. So yeah, again, probably for now at least, I'm still growing that list of things that I'm finding here. But okay, then what happens is a monomyth picks up like this, where it's going to be an adventure, perhaps a Greek adventure. Jason is saved out at birth. He is taken to Mount Olympus to talk to Zeus and gets 5 favors from Hera. Moses is saved out from birth. He goes up to Mount Horeb, talks to God at the burning bush, and gets the magical staff that's going to go to Aaron. So the supernatural aid is happening right there. Jason eventually, has to leave has to leave Phineas and the harpies coming back and forth. Moses has Egypt with all the plagues happening over and over again. So the cycles of pain are both being there, same sequence. Then they leave, struggle to leave. Jason has to sail through the clashing rocks, has to invoke the help of a god. Moses has to go through the Red Sea and has to invoke God. They're both chased. They both barely make it. These continually become the sequential elements that people look at them and say, yeah, those are not the same at all. And you go, they're built on the same template. They're fake stories built on the same template. Can you see the core? Okay, then they change up the genre. You go to Greek myth, and there it is. There's a hero's journey. Except that how did the Greeks treat it? They don't treat it like you must worship this person and you're in guilt and they're going to kill you for that. They don't treat it that way. It's more of an adventure. They've got something different going on. The Jewish people, what are they doing? I think from Leviticus, they're like stoning each other in the streets and killing each other if they don't trust somebody or something like that. I get this very barbaric idea of early Jewish life, incredibly barbaric, living in tents and stoning people. What does that sound like? We're creating temples, all out of canvas. Meanwhile, everybody else, you're tearing down ziggurats and taking over, from the Babylonians, which happens. Anyway, what happens then is that the entire way that structure is held, the template is held in verbiage that is meant now to be a control thing, except if you look at it, it's very far-fetched for anybody that looks at it. All right, so you saw my list there, the core template, that's it. This is the entire sequence of what it really is. Mine is very clinical. It needs to be actually softened up a bit and added more things to it. That right there would be something like what the Dhammapada is going to teach, what the Tao is going to teach, what the Hermetica is going to teach, what the Kabbalion is going to teach. They get cryptic in their own weird ways. You have to stay with them. The Enuma Elish becomes a monomyth, but only when Marduk is called. Before then, it goes through creation. At a time when even the glories above had yet to be named, and unuttered was the word for the world which lay beneath, it was then that the first being Apsu, who is their source, and the progenitor Tiamat, the mother who gave birth to all, intermingled their waters, producing neither field nor marsh. At a time when no divine beings had yet come into existence, there were no names to be spoken, and no fates pronounced. So this is us in our most infant time, and no fates pronounced. No names to be spoken and no fates pronounced. No classification of things. I have decided, judged something, and therefore it's not going to come back. Judge not, lest you be judged. No names had been spoken. Nothing had been judged. Lest you be judged. No fates pronounced. You won't be judged. And the gods were given birth within those intermixing waves. Those are our inner beings. The first were Lamu and Lahamu, and their names were spoken. That's our Adam and Eve. But once they had fully grown and become of mature form, then they were Anshar and Kishar. So we're going to see it emerge here in a way it's there. It's good. It's different. Gods are the early things. That's because they were in charge. They controlled us. I don't want to act out. Yeah, when it wants to, guess what? It's coming out. It's your God at that time. So we have to destroy those gods. We created them to do things, but now we got to destroy them later and replace them with men, which are passive to us. That means our own inner qualities. We no longer are saying, I don't know why I did that. I'm sorry. Okay. So anyway, do I get off track here? See how those are going. All right. Now what we have is things like if you went to the Bhagavad Gita is a good example of this is a monomyth. It doesn't have the creation in it. This is a Hindu monomyth. What you have is Krishna and Arjuna in the beginning. Arjuna is the called one. That's the one that has to go back and get his land back. His family that had it to begin with on loan are supposed to relinquish it, but they're not. So he's got to go back and get it. He's got to get Krishna to go with him. So here we have our connection between our higher being and our conscious self. And we have the idea that we must, what's Jason doing? He's got to go defeat Pelias, his early self, to get back his kingdom. So in here we have Arjuna, who has to go back and defeat his family members to get back his land. So the same thing is happening there. And they're going up and down and surveying the battlefield. So they're going up and down the threshold. They're looking across, seeing what needs to happen. But I won't continue on. Arjuna decides, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. So he's like, we've got the call and the refusal unfolding right there and what's happening to happen. But the Mahabharata is a lot bigger than the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is only a monomyth, Hindu style. Okay. Then we go into, and that same template is there. It's just the outer casing that is different. And we're going to see that same thing emerge once we get to Greek myth. All of these are what are really known and identified easily as the monomyth because they all have these heroes that all have some kind of magic power. That's Moses and Aaron with the staff. That's Thor and his hammer. In a different genre, but yeah, those ones are. I think I find them more straightforward. I always go to Jason and the Argonauts because this is such a big thing. If you go to the Iliad and the Odyssey, they're monsters. Jason and the Argonauts is short. Some people just complain about it because of that. Oh, it doesn't have. It has all the elements there. It just they made it very quick. What you see on TV is not complete, and it's fun because there were 3 different versions. The original author went someplace crazy. What you're leaving, like in Moses leaving Egypt, that's what he had to leave. He had to leave Egypt, and it was a struggle to leave Egypt. What we have here is, in the original one, was the island of stinky women, and there was something that had to be left behind. From antiquity, that was changed by other authors, more famous, and I don't recall their names. But there were a couple of versions. One of them was to leave the island of the Amazon women, and the other one was to leave the island of the old gods. So you realize at some point, okay, those are a lot different sounding, but they're supposed to be doing the same thing. Therefore, we can look at them and compare them for their kind of conceptual elemental construction. And we step back and look at it as an inward concept. I'm leaving something behind. Women, the stinky women, this is my old qualities. The island of the Amazon women. These are my old qualities that are powerful and want to stop me from going on. The island of the old gods. This is my old way of life that I'm struggling to leave in the past. In all cases, that's what they're representing, a struggle to leave the past. Right there. That's what they mean. And the past is, in some cases, there's more details. The females are, that's represented in a hierarchy, a mental hierarchy of conscious and subconscious. So it's going to, you'll see it maintained that way. But that's going to be in Greek mythology, and they've got kind of a network thing going on a little bit. You see, people on the adventure at some point jumping off before crossing a threshold or something. They're going to go off and have a different adventure. They're going to start a network of Greek myth. Okay, now we go to another carrier. This one, the Abrahamic. They also have the template, but they went with someplace on the carrier shell that was different than all of them. They decided, you know what? Instead of telling people it's up to you, instead of telling people, oh, it's an adventure, you're the adventurer, hope you can figure out how to go on the path, we're going to tell people that all of these things are like external out there. Instead of it just being an adventure or something like that, this one is very specifically a carrier case that is meant to invoke something different in the mind of a human. We're evolving. We have fear. We want to live. Bingo. Once we learn to look at them conceptually, we see that nevertheless it's the same template, and that what that would let us know is that the stories in Genesis, you can have your own opinion about them, but at the end of the day, what you realize is that they have the same viability as, say, Greek mythology. There's a funny argument that archaeologists find proof of the Bible because these places that the Bible talks about were actually there, buried in the sand or things like that. There's evidence of it. And you know what? That doesn't do anything except for say that's when the story was made. We do the same thing today. It doesn't prove anything supernatural. If you went to a Greek myth, they would be sailing from Crete across the Mediterranean all around. That doesn't mean that there are cyclops and hydras. It doesn't prove the story. It simply places the story in their time for their people who are carrying the story. It needed to be meaningful to them. They don't live like we do. It's a very sheltered, minimal. You rely on people to tell you things to learn what's going on or the range of your walking. It is a lot different. These stories should not be looked at today as real. They should be looked at as the carrier that they are to help us turn inward and get to the core. There's no easier way to say it than a verse of his that is, if you come to the altar to leave a gift, and while you're there you remember you have aught against your brother, set your gift down, go resolve the aught first, then come back and give your gift, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you in secret. And what I get out of that is, why are you going to give a gift at the altar? You're going there. What you're looking for in this case is, I'm invoking good graces. I want a better life. I'm going to give gifts to get a better life. Meanwhile, I got a bunch of angry, unresolved stuff in the past, and I'm asking for a better life, but it's not going to happen. God's not going to reward me. The cosmos isn't going to unfold. It doesn't have to be God. God is an explanation for somebody, but it's natural. It's the way the human works in an energy-based. Everything is energy-based. We are energy in energy. Consciously emergent from energy somehow, but that's our core. Okay, you know what, the gift, it's more than that. What are they doing back then? They're probably offering burnt offerings or something like that. But quite literally, I think it is a cause and effect at a mental level, and we can experience this, is if you have a bunch of baggage and a bunch of hurt stuff, you can do good things and do your best to overcome that and do good stuff, but it just doesn't really work. It doesn't reciprocate correctly, or maybe at times it does, but not consistently. You keep getting pulled down, that there's something different that's going on, that despite the fact that trying to do good, it doesn't make it just instantly go away. There's something else that has to happen. So here we are in the Jesus verse from antiquity telling us this very same thing, that if we want to have a better life and we've got things that are unresolved, we have to resolve that stuff. And then it'll just happen automatically. Your Father who sees in secret will reward you in secret. As within, so without, is what that is, in a very verbose, colorful way. But you have to know to read it conceptually and that it plays out up in the psyche. There are so many parallels to that. If you went to... what was it? The Gospel of Thomas, somewhere in there, about the strong man. If you know the strong man is coming, then you practice, you prepare, and then when the strong man comes, you defeat it. You know the cyclical thing is coming around, you make preparations for it. You know that if your life is not okay, you resolve the things that are in the past, the stuff that you are carrying with you. You need to be poor in spirit, empty or devoid of the clinging hurt, all that kind of stuff. So all of it is going to so simply link back inward that it's starkly crazy. At first, it is very difficult to see that. When you hook into it enough, you realize, and what you're doing is learning to just view the concept that is in the word and or in the verses. And it's simple because they're always going to be a part of that life cycle template. I've placed them all there. They fit consistently throughout. But it's a mental place to get there to work it out. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The Tao that is mentally experienced is. This is your thing. Everybody gets as far as they go, as far as they want to, as far as they apply themselves. I'm OCD about it, so I'm going a long way. That's all I want to do, really. Just pick it all apart. There's still more to learn from it. Anyway, okay, so that's it. Short verse is about, naming is the origin of all particular things, is something you would get in a verse. But if you went to a religion, you might say, and then God gave the higher being, gave Adam the consciousness, the naming, you name all of the things. This is us naming things. Naming is the origin of all particular things. It's the same thing now being held in a starkly different verbiage. But it's super simple to work it out, because when I'm reading the Tao Te Ching, I know it's about me and my life experience. And when I'm reading the Bible, I know that the world represents my world, my life experience. They're just shifting it another layer of fun story element. The monomyth is simply really not, the Joseph Campbell one, it's not right. It is actually, it's a toe hold in. It is. But there's the things like the steps he has, like interacting with the meeting with the goddess and the father and all that stuff. This is reconnecting with the higher self, with the inner being and that sort of stuff. So I don't include that in there. Those are steps in the story. Oh, now the hero meets up with the beautiful woman who goes along with him. This represents the meeting up with your inner self. This is just we're turning inward. We're crossing the threshold, turning inward, and meeting up with our female pretty self that we want to save while defeating the evil self that has taken over and was running our early life. It's a wonderful way of holding that idea that we've got to go back and recover our inner self that was pure early on from what it has become throughout life. Does that make sense? It's a bigger picture than the monomyth. There are short verse, and then there's ways of just colorfully carrying a big story that if you went along it, I'm this person. I must collect these qualities. The 40 Argonauts, they can do this, they can do that. They can, they're going to be used as elements in the story. You have to do is change the way you feel about that. That's changing the frequency of something. You're going to have people along that can tame things. You're going to have, in Jesus' case, you got Thomas, you got your doubts. You've got people that can tame the wild beast with music, a way to, hey, cool out, chill out. We have different qualities that we're bringing with us that are becoming parts of the monomyth story that make it significantly bigger with richer elements to it. They still all fit in the psyche. It's still going to go there. So you have to wonder what they're doing. And they become qualities. Then you begin looking at what each one of those people were, what that represented in their culture, or in the works of the New Testament, the 12 disciples. What are their names? Matthew, Mark, Luke, those are actually all of the 12 disciples, their names mean something. And those represent the qualities we're bringing with us as you go in. You need to have a sense of fairness, a sense of balance, righteousness. You got to know the difference between what's baloney and not, what's fantasy and what's reality. All of that is what they're just put as the story gets richer and richer. And then as there's more people, those are facets of us along the way. I'm telling you a story now. Really? There's 2 of me right there. You doing a good job? There's 3 of me right there. I don't like this. There's 4 of me right there. That's kind of an over example. And then later time goes on and I've changed my mind about something. I am now a different person. I've had different experiences. I start out as Abram and Sarai, my outer self and my inner self. As time goes on, I go through an experience, I morph, I become Abraham and Sarah. That can't continue on. They eventually have to die, and the new emergence, offspring from there, is the new self. So they're slicing up our life as they're doing this and making it big, long thing. This is not just you going through an adventure. This is you going through a life in a network that they have mapped out. which is just goofy as hell. They left the template really intact, the sequences. There's going to be repeating stuff, and that's what I'm looking for right now. At the very end of the day, all this is getting to is let go. Find a way to find everything that hurts you and find a way to have it, think it through until it doesn't hurt you anymore, until you can go, God, that monkey's not on my back. That'll make a difference in the way you feel and the way your life experiences. That's it right there. But actually, that's not it right there. It does go farther. The idea is that we live life, observing life through what we see in the physical world, and that we judge life based on that, not understanding that that is the final manifestation. That when we see those things and we judge those things, we have to understand what is motivating and driving those things in order to properly interact with them and understand them. Otherwise, we just get angrily caught up in it, living blindly as part of wherever we came from, whatever side is the good side, right? Which is every side. Which is the side you come from. We get outside of that. We live outside of that, realizing that that's not the way we're going to make it. The rest of it, what do you do with millions of people emerging, walking around with robes on, that don't have a global sense of anything? They just see their area. These stories are not what we think they are. They're very, very important to their culture, incredibly important. It's guiding them as their rules, their laws, their morality as they're emerging from stoning each other in the streets. Yeah. Although it looks like we're getting close to returning to that. Anyway, okay. Does that explain it? Yeah. I probably said too much. I'm not sure where to go. Ask any questions, comments. I'll post this out in public, I guess, too. And to everyone else, I'll put a link to the Discord server if you're interested. If you like the content, please like and subscribe just to help try to get some kind of interest out there. I'd like to engage other people that are finding and working with this material, that see the patterns, that see what's going on and want to explore that. So it's a very open invitation to help. Do you see this? Can we figure it out? It's big, 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 big. Now I'm going to have, I think these already are posted up on the Discord server, the list as they are. I haven't worked on updating them yet. And like I said, they're flexible. There's still things in the monomyth that goes on. But again, in a nutshell, there's that one template, what I've got here, that is just starkly interactive, clinical almost. You have to kind of stretch from that. What is even Dan saying? This is us emerging. This is our higher and lower being, our inner and outer self, our memories, our subconscious, our storage of memories that is this bundle of what we begin to live through that is basically our female self. And the conscious judgment of our life experience stored in there is what makes it what it is. And we're looking to interact with that to change the life experience using the higher being to work with us to flow different in life. In a nutshell, that's it. And if we go to here, the Tao Te Ching, again, caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Desire is not just what we want. Desire means what we are physically attached to. So as we're looking at all of the things in life, the things that we're not letting go of, we're going to continue to see the manifestation of them over and over again. Okay? So basically, then you have a very stark psychological teaching that is just about going in and looking at the things that you don't like to deal with and make them okay so that they don't hurt you anymore. Stop harboring them away. There's not going to be many people that do that. That's where the isolation comes down. But that we became products of what we experienced in life and judged it to be. And that it just continues to get worse and worse and move on that way until we understand that and find ways to extract ourselves from it. And then the process that's required to do that, and then what comes out the other side. Now, when you get into the Tao Te Ching or the Dhammapada or something, if you're not living the experience itself, you're just going through the core material. Or like Jesus with the Sermon on the Mount or the Sermon on the Plain, that's just a core teaching right there that everything else is built from. That is basically this. This is how you must turn in and heal. It is the teaching, cryptic, not at all in a monomyth form, but in two different genres. One of them a very spiritual, inward looking, the other one a very in a shell that is very external, turn it over, relinquish to a higher being. And if you do so, that's what you need to do. So they're carried in two different ways. One of them, the person knows they must look at themselves. The other one is told that if they simply relinquish it over to something in the dark, that it'll be okay. Meanwhile, all the time, God is there. God is real. God is the higher self and our connection with the cosmos, and we have a flow with each other. So we're going to continue to have experiences that when people get caught up in it, are going to say, oh, yep, I see the presence. I feel that experience. You know what? You can have that experience anywhere for many reasons. That same feeling. It's natural, and it goes both directions. People do things in groups bad that is worse than they ever would have done on their own. We see that all the time too. And I think most people you can see still continue to act out that it's there. Not until you go in and resolve it. And within the Bible and Jesus' teachings, it's telling you that. It knows that most people won't do it, but some will. So that's where the monomyth comes in then. It becomes the adventure story. It's now going through that same teaching. Except now, instead of you just going, it's up to me, it's like, now I'm so-and-so. Now I have this power. I have this ability. I must cross the threshold. I must defeat what happens. I'm struggling to leave the past behind. It's coming after me. I barely get away. Now I must go through this torturous time of transition, of waiting, of purging, either defeating the demons or going into the desert in a different way where you're clearing out the space. It's an emptiness you're looking for. You want that past to be gone. You're only consuming what you need for that time frame, and the 40 is till it gets done. This whole thing then becomes the monomyth. That is where it turns into a story that is a story that the healing adventurer is going on. But it doesn't show in the beginning of in the monomyth, only in the beginning of each one of them, in Judaism or in Greek myth or in Hinduism, in anything like that, there's only one creation myth. As it goes downstream, they don't continue to replicate creation. What they do is continue to add into the stories ways from time to time of telling you, remember to keep in cycles and remember to keep in cause and effect, and continue on. And you know what? I can show an example of that with Enoch. Right off in the beginning, the first book of Enoch is just as we get into it. It goes through the calling here, but then right in chapter 2, it does this. Observe everything that takes place in the sky, how the lights do not change their orbits, and the luminaries which are in heaven, how they all rise and set in order in its season, proper time, and do not transgress their appropriate order. Consider the earth and understand the things which take place on it from start to finish, how steadfast they are, how none of the things on the earth change, but all of the works of God appear to you. All the works of God is everything that can happen, just life. Behold the summer and the winter, how the whole earth is filled with water, and clouds and dew and rain lie on it. Observe and see how in the winter all the trees seem as though they had withered and shed all their leaves, except 14 trees which do not lose their foliage, but retain the old foliage from 2 to 3 years until the new comes. Observe the days of summer, how the sun is above the earth, and you seek shade in the shelter. Okay, so it goes on with some things like this. Before it really starts the story, it's going through some observational things that really have to do with maintaining that link with the cause and effect and the cyclical nature of things. This is downstream from Genesis, so it doesn't replicate. It doesn't replicate creation, but because it's going to stand alone as a story they're going around verbally. We're memorizing these things. It has to have the instructions with it. So it's not going to have creation, but it'll have the cause and effect and the cycles. Seems that way anyway to me. That continues to emerge. I don't see any other reason. I do want to say to anybody who's made it here, that 14 trees, that's a mystery. I don't find that anywhere. If that sounds familiar to anybody, let me know. Wherever it might be. I don't care. 14 something somewhere. There's got to be what those 14 trees are. Typically there are 5 trees or 5 rivers or something like that, which is the mental hierarchy and the way we flow in life. So what are 14 trees? Something different's going on there. But we still have the cause, the effect, and the cycles with other things included in it. There's more mystery there. That's kind of what I see. So there's different things happening. Yep, there's the short verse that just tells you to do it, empty in spirit. The other one, it tells you, you become this person. You must understand how to do it. You must turn inward. You must cross the threshold. What you are holding up here that you're not empty in is the pain and the shame. So this is how you go attack the pain and the shame. It goes into a completely different realm of teaching that is detailed, but is also adventurous. Okay, I hope that makes sense. That's in summation as best I can. And I'm sure I'm not completely right. And I'm sure I said some things that are inaccurate. Hope it was helpful. Post any questions. Everyone else, I'll put a link to the Discord server below. You're welcome to join. It's all open, and this is just pretty much what we talk about, trying to figure this stuff out. What is that in the background? And let's expose it and take a look at it. Okay, please like and subscribe if you made it this far, and I'll see you in the next video.